Well, good afternoon, members of the community viewing on live stream. Good afternoon, councillors, and good afternoon to our staff here with us today. As is traditional with opening our council meetings, I'd like to pay respect to the Durrumbal people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather and which we enjoy our lifestyle, and pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging, and also pay respect to all First Nations people within the room or within the community. We have a full attendance, councillors. Just going quickly through the agenda, which is very short. There are no leave of absences required, no declarations of interest. Item 5, business arising or outstanding from previous meetings. We have to lift a matter off the table that was laid on the table, I think, by Councillor Friend at the last meeting. And she's going to move that it be raised from the table and seconded by Councillor Swadling. All in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you. All right, so Councillor Mather. Pardon me? It was on the... Yep. Item 6, presentation of petitions. There are none. Item 7, beg your pardon, councillor delegate reports, none. So we'll jump straight into item 8, which is the notice of motion from Councillor Bello in relation to land tenure for the Capricorn Coast Outriggers Canoe Club. Councillor Bello, do you want to speak to your notice of motion at all?
I'm happy to move that, Mr. Chair.
Rightio. So we've got a mover in Councillor Bello. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Friend, thank you. All right, is there any discussion on this, councillors? Councillor Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any questions for public viewing today because we met with locals on Sunday at Lammermoor and there was a sausage sizzle, as we know. It wasn't just the outriggers, it was local community members as well, which was an opportunity to speak with them about some of their concerns in relation to the scenic highway. However, after speaking with the people from the outriggers, I actually understand now why they need this tenure for the storage of vessels that they use for competition. These are not the vessels that are located along that Lammermoor actual foreshore, and how important it is for them to actually maintain them and look after them by having a shed or a facility that they may be able to store. I suppose the only thing I'm concerned about in the original and it's not in front of me, but in the original report that we attended to last week, it noted that a clubhouse would not be suitable, especially if it was for commercial purposes, if they're selling drinks, selling food. So I'm going to be voting for this notice of motion in relation to a shed for storage.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Friend. Anyone speaking against? Councillor Mather, I recognise you first. Yep.
Sorry, because I didn't have the agenda.
Yep, microphone.
Because I didn't have the agenda, I was waiting for something on the email side of it rather than the portal, Mr. Mayor. I just need to be sure of what we're voting on here.
Did you want me to go through it, Councillor Mather?
Well, I'd like to understand it that we are all on the same page, Mr. Mayor.
All right, so the recommendation is that subject to normal development approval processes, Council firstly signals its intent to secure Capricorn Coast Outriggers suitable land tenure over the reserve for recreation, known as Pilkington Park, to enable development of a clubhouse/shed for the sport of outrigging. Any issues on that one, Councillor Mather?
No.
All right. Point 2, application be made to the Department of Resources to either change the gazetted use of the reserve or seek approval for secondary use of the reserve to accommodate the development.
Yeah,
Okay with that one?
Yep.
And 3, a parallel process of community engagement be undertaken to communicate council's intentions publicly.
That's clear, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Okay,
In support of the motion.
thank you. All right. Councillor Eastwood.
Mr. Mayor, look, I just want to speak for it, but I imagine just in case there's somebody who will speak against it.
I don't think anyone's going to speak against it, Councillor Eastwood, so the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, the Outriggers are they're a club, sporting club that have had lots of longevity in this Shire, Mr Mayor, and it's important that we do look after them. I'm just a little bit confused. I think Councillor Friend stated that she would only be interested in voting towards a shed, where I believe that on the motion it's clubhouse shed, and I'm not sure what the extent of that means, what the difference is, but I will certainly be voting for a clubhouse / shed, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
I think it's very important that the members support this.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Eastwood. Anyone else like the floor before we go to the vote on this? Councillor Bello, did you want to wrap up?
Just a further question, if I may, Mr
Councillor
Mayor, before you
Mather,
go
yes.
to wrap up.
Mm.
Number 3, would the concerns of Councillor Eastwood be captured in number 3, a parallel process of community engagement be undertaken to communicate council's intention? I would imagine that would be before any further action is taken.
Indeed, and I think it's probably captured in point 2 that the application to the Department of Resources would encompass what sort of building could be constructed on site anyway, Councillor Mather.
So that would take care of Councillor Eastwood's. I'm happy.
All right, thank you.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm just confused when it says selling food and drink. Does that mean alcohol, or what does that mean when it says drink?
Well, at this stage, that would be up to the licensing people. So OLGR, the Office of Liquor, Gaming and Racing, to determine approvals for selling alcohol. But certainly, you know, in the initial stages, I would imagine the clubhouse would be looking to sell soft drinks at least.
Mr Mayor, I have a question, perhaps to Councillor Bello, in relation to a clubhouse / shed. Would it be something very similar to saleability? What they have a club. They kind of have a small kitchenette area, and then they have a shed for storage.
Thank you for the question. I don't know what ultimately will come as a result of this process and this application if it's supported. I would probably encourage councillors to recognise that you've got a fairly lengthy approval process. You've got a whole range of state interest checks to go through. All of those nuances about what could or could not happen would be subject to probably a material change of use. So we're going to have a lengthy process to be able to scrutinise what activity is allowable there. So that's probably the best that I can answer on behalf of what the aspirations of the Outriggers are. It may not be that they want to sell anything. Actually, they may just want to be able to paint their boats and have the scouts enjoy the shed as well, which they've talked about co-locating with. May not be any more than that. So, thank you.
All right. Any other questions, councillors? All right, so Councillor Bello, do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, well, Mayor and councillors and staff, this is what I believe is a really exciting day in the history of the Livingstone Shire Council, and especially in this term of this council. Probably over 12 months ago, or maybe even more, an item appeared on the business outstanding table that's been there for the last 12 months. That basically was that officers be entrusted with trying to find a solution to the problem that the Outriggers had with not being or having suitable land to function from. We had a problem. The officers sought to find a solution. What a wonderful partnership that we went on over that 12 months. There was a bit of a hiccup towards the end though, because the land that was identified, unfortunately, despite everybody's best intent, they did not know that the land actually didn't belong to the Scouts. So it'd be a bit like you occupying your neighbour's block of land and you take over it, and then one day you do a survey and you go, oh, that's actually not our land at all. We can't let the Outriggers go on there. It potentially could have stalled there somewhat, because if the Outriggers have to be the ones then, and this is where this motion speaks to the intent of where we go from here, if it was left to the Outriggers as a small community group to seek application through the state departments, compared to the might and authority of a council, they're going to have a much harder job. That's where we come in and say, okay, we're okay to, in principle, support your operations there, subject to the appropriate consultation. And then when the state are assessing the application, they know that the council's on board. That's a lot more comforting to them than a small group made up of 30 people. So that's what really this is about, is supporting that in principle. It's not getting down to the minutiae of what it could be, because that'll go through the appropriate processes. And we can take assurance that that has the checks and balances in place. The biggest hurdle, though, is if the council's on board, well then that effectively means the community's on board. So I really thank you if indeed the support is there, and I thank the officers, Molly, and your team. This has been a tricky problem with Laurie there. In fact, I can remember likening it to the Night Dragon, who was there was an unsolved crime that for 40 years was not solved. Nobody could solve it, of these murders in Brisbane. And a book come out, and then it was actually Michael Dowie, a Yeppoon lad, who reopened the case, or he was assigned to it, and he solved the case. And this case for me was a bit like that. We needed to have a fresh set of eyes, a fresh approach. And Molly, you gave us something that we could solve it with. So, and your team. So I commend it to the table. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Bello. All right, happy to wrap up debate, councillors. We've got a mover in Councillor Bello, seconded in Councillor Friend. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. As this is the only item on our agenda today for consideration in this special meeting, councillors, I bid you a good afternoon, close the meeting, and thank everyone for listening in, and thank our officers for their attendance. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, mate.